all, I just want to thank everybody who's participated in this, both physically and virtually over the course of the day. Listening to that conversation about some of the learnings that came out of the regional events, I couldn't help but think about a couple things. And I know I'm just supposed to introduce Lori, but you give me a mic and you make me listen to somebody else for half an hour. I'm going to have a few things I just have to say. And one of them is there was a series of comments about this idea of, do you try something and see if it works, or do you just run hard across the top? And my answer to that is you try a lot of things. I think generally speaking, one thing we've tried to do as an administration since the beginning was try a lot of things, and if we found things that work, try to do more of it. And the pandemic kind of got in the way of some of these initiatives, which makes me nuts. But if you think about something like early college, which we started 6 years ago maybe, which was a program that was designed to give juniors and seniors, primarily in gateway cities, an opportunity to work on college credits, either in the classrooms that they were familiar with at their high school or at the nearby college or community college, being taught by either faculty at the local community college or faculty that was certified that taught in their high schools, but were certified by the higher ed institutions they were partnering with. That program is now at about 50 of the 250 high schools in Massachusetts, and it's crushing it. Almost 80% of all the kids who participate in that program are earning significant high school. There are certain high schools located in gateway cities where you graduate from high school with an associate's degree, which means you have 2 years of college under your belt that you didn't pay a dime for, and you have colleges that you've been working with that love you, know you can do the work, and in many cases give you a free ride for the last 2 years because they know you'll finish. And we have tried very hard to take this program to the moon. And the push on it, coming from the Lieutenant Governor and me, and from many of the participating schools that have been involved in it, has been pretty significant. But we're still only at 50. In my own opinion, this thing should be available in every high school in Massachusetts. And it has been a game changer, especially for kids in gateway cities and kids of color. And for many kids of color, the single biggest problem they have graduating from college is money and what I would call a support system, because many of them are usually first generation. And this program basically takes care of the front end of both of those. You graduate from high school with 2 years worth of college credits, and the price, especially if you've gotten to know the school that may choose to write your ticket for the next 2 years, money is not the issue. And you certainly by then know a number of the key programs, know a number of the key teachers. You've already put all of your sort of core coursework behind you, and it's a big, big winner. And, and it's been a big push to get it to move. Now, this year, the legislature looks like they're going to give us a pretty significant expansion. Like I said, 3 years ago, before the pandemic, we proposed it be in every high school in Massachusetts. But that's a good example of a program that works, and it works especially for the kids that we're most interested in seeing get the benefit out of that. Another one is the Career Technical Initiative, which also got kind of waylaid by the pandemic. But on that one, the goal was to basically create opportunities for kids who didn't get into a vo-tech school, but wanted to get robotics, computer science, engineering, health informatics, all of the programs that are available at the vo-tech school. This program makes it available at participating vo-tech schools as an after-school option for kids. And along with that, many of them also have night programs for people who are looking to switch careers. And in 2019, we literally had employers hovering over these schools, just waiting for these kids to finish their programs so they could hire them. And they were literally scooping up every single kid that came out of the program, in many cases, and giving them an opportunity to build a career. And in many cases, a career that came with support for furthering their education if that was something they wanted to do. The pandemic definitely stepped on a bunch of this stuff, and getting the flywheel going again is going to take a little while. But I would argue we already know about a whole number of programs and initiatives that work and have been proven to work, serving many of the kids and young adults that were very much a part of the conversation we just heard there. And I really do hope as we move forward, it becomes a little less about prove it, which is what I feel like it's been about for the past 5 years, and more about, okay, it's been proven, let's do a lot more of it, and let's do it quickly. And with that, I'm now going to introduce you, Lori, because I just had to get that off my chest. Lori Leshin is, in fact, a rocket scientist, okay? She got her undergrad degree at Arizona State University, and she got a master's and a PhD at some small little school no one's ever heard of called Caltech. She has spent time working at NASA previously. She's going back. She worked at the Goddard Center at one point at NASA. She's going off to become, I think, the director of the Jet Propulsion Lab at NASA, whatever that is or whatever that means. I hope you do. But we have been blessed to have her for 8 years here in the Commonwealth. And she truly is, in many respects, a major player in a whole variety of STEM fields, and has proven that you can play a lot of different roles in this space and play them successfully and make an enormous difference on behalf of not just the fields that you're operating in, but the people who are looking to either get into them, understand them better, or leverage them in pursuit of knowledge and in pursuit of opportunities. You will be very much missed here, but you've been an awesome partner in so many ways. And by the way, the weather will be a hell of a lot nicer in Southern California than it is here. Lori Leshin.
Wow. Thank you, Governor. It is an honor to have you introduce me. That's wonderful. I am a tech geek, so it means I got my notes on my iPad here. So, of course, yes, get the tech working. It's great to be here. So, are we broadcasting to the other places? Okay, hi, streaming people. Nice to see you all. I'm thrilled to hear about the distributed and hybrid, and we're really taking advantage of the tech. It's much greener too, not to have everybody driving across the state, so that's fantastic. So again, Governor Baker, thank you. Lieutenant Governor Polito, thank you for being here, and for the very kind introduction, Secretary Pizer as well. Thanks, it's great to see you all in person. You all probably don't even know how committed to STEM our governor is. I have firsthand knowledge of this because I have witnessed it in action before the pandemic, in the before times. You remember this? So Governor Baker visited us at WPI because we were hosting a regional first robotics event. And so, of course, I was there, and he made some remarks, and we were hanging out, and then it just sort of turned into this thing where neither one of us wanted to leave, and the Swampscott team made it to the finals, and finally his staff literally, I think physically, had to drag him out of the place because he wanted to stay to see the finals. And so this is actually the reason, this is how you get the governor's cell phone number, is if you're gonna be there for the finals of the first robotics competition with the Swampscott team there. So I had to text him the results, which I did, and it was a spectacle. It was. I wasn't going to say that. We're very proud. There's no losers. And by the way, first, a great competition, intense environment, competitive environment, and yet it's the only sport where everyone can turn pro. So it's it's true. It's a fantastic one. So I've seen firsthand how much this governor loves STEM and loves to geek out. So we're here to talk about STEM. Why is that important? And I'm not going to give you, again, my expectation today is I'm not going to say anything any of you don't know, maybe a little bit of space geekery that you don't know, but we don't have to talk very much, I hope, in this crowd about why STEM is important. Of course, there are economic arguments about the future of our innovation economy. And frankly, just a little bit of Googling will show you that there is some pretty scary trends there. The US has dropped out of the top 10 in Bloomberg's Innovation Index as of last year, dropped out of the top 10 nations, right? That's a pretty terrifying thing. And one of the things they point to there is the need to continue to invest in and build pipelines into STEM education, because the students we're educating are directly driving the future innovation economy. But that's not all, right? It's not only about creating the next scientists and engineers. And of course, I'm a scientist, I work with all engineers, I love the geeks, they're my favorite, but the skills that students learn when they engage with STEM, creativity, problem solving, teamwork, these are things that serve every learner well. So it's important for so many reasons, from the future of our country and its standing in the world, all the way down to impacting the lives of individual young people. So it's something that we should all focus on. For me, I am standing here as someone, normally they talk me out of using slides today, but normally you would get to see sort of hideous pictures of me from 7th grade, like how to go from being a sort of nerdy middle school girl to being the first woman president of one of our nation's oldest technological universities, and soon to be the first woman director of NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. How does something like that happen? I don't have anything special in my background. I didn't come from, a super geeky family. I didn't come from a super wealthy family. I didn't come from a family where this path was obvious. I did, however, come from a family where I had a mom who was a big old feminist who in the 70s used to go to National Organization for Women meetings and was trying to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. And I remember her taking me with her as a little girl. I was probably 6 years old. We lived in Texas at the time, and she was meeting with all of these women, and they were all sort of standing on their chairs and making a lot of noise and marching, and I didn't understand any of it at the time. But now I understand that they were trying to kick down the doors so that girls like me could grow up to be women like me and could grow up to embrace whatever path was in front of us. And so I'm incredibly grateful for those women who came ahead and now take a lot of responsibility to be that next generation of women who comes ahead. So we'll come back to that one. I want to just say 3 things as I think about STEM and kind of what are the important ingredients going forward as we look at continuing to work to create that pipeline for the future. I think they're 3 fairly obvious things, but I'll use them to talk a little bit about my own path and context. So these are 3 ideas for us to consider as we're thinking about the future of STEM. And the first is to cultivate wonder. We could talk all we want about economic development and job growth and all this stuff, but STEM starts with wonder. It starts with inspiration. It starts with being amazed by the natural world, by the built world, by other people. There are all kinds of ways to inspire wonder. And for teachers, I think it's that spark, right? How do we create that spark and then recognize it when it's happening and then, fan that flame, cultivate it along? For me, it started pretty young. I was fascinated by the outdoors. I grew up in Arizona, so it's a very kind of outdoorsy state. And I remember, so we had moved from Texas to Arizona, and my dad took us to the Grand Canyon when I was maybe 8 years old. And I remember we went up to the edge of the Grand Canyon. Have you been to the Grand Canyon? If you haven't been to the Grand Canyon, you must go. Now that people can go places again, you should go there. It's truly spectacular. Standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, incredibly awe-inspiring. We turn around behind us, there's a sign that says, "Please do not take rocks from the Grand Canyon." It's a national park and stuff. You shouldn't. My dad says, "See, that's how the Grand Canyon formed. Everyone came, took a rock, and there you go." And I remember, as an 8-year-old kid, thinking, I don't think that's right. I don't believe that. I think that's not true. I was already hypothesis testing, essentially, as an 8-year-old kid. but just absolutely riveted by the world around us. And then not long after that, as a 10-year-old girl, so many people in the space industry are inspired by it, or inspired by Apollo or Sputnik, if you go back a little further, but Apollo was the thing that inspired so many. I'm a little bit too young. I don't remember it. I was alive, but I don't remember it. The thing that got me was the first images from the surface of Mars sent back by the Viking landers, 1976. And just seeing that Martian landscape, those red rocks, there was something about it that spoke to me, and probably because I grew up in Arizona, it kind of looked like home. Mars sort of does to us Arizonans. And I just remember wanting to reach out and touch those rocks, and just having been fascinated by what was out there, what's beyond. And the great thing about my new role, which in 2.5 weeks I'm moving to California to become the director of the Jet Propulsion Lab, which is a great organization of about 6,000 people that is designing, building, operating, doing science with about 50 different robotic space missions at any given time. And it's a pretty exciting time there right now. I won't spend a ton of time on this, but just have to brag on them a little bit, because it is a place that inspires people everywhere. And again, that first thing being that spark of inspiration, that cultivating of wonder. The work that we get to do every day at JPL just cultivates wonder everywhere, all over the world. Have people been following the Mars helicopter flying around on Mars? Just took an amazing picture actually just a couple of days ago. It's all over Twitter right now if you're Twitter people, of the back shell of the spacecraft that delivered the Perseverance rover and the Mars helicopter to Mars. It flew over, and now it has great images of the parachute and the back shell. It's just all in a bunch of pieces on the surface of Mars. Whoever would have thought that we would go fly a drone, basically a helicopter, on another planet? Incredibly inspiring. And then of course Perseverance, the rover that it came with, is driving around an amazing river delta on Mars, taking chalk-sized samples, drilling into rocks and getting little tubes of rock that it's keeping, which one of our big missions when I go to JPL will be to go retrieve those and bring them back to Earth. The first time we will have ever gone to Mars and come back. We've never done that. We've only gone on the one-way trip with our robots. We want to send a robot, grab those samples, and bring them back to Earth. So be watching for that one. The other big mission that's happened recently is the James Webb Space Telescope. Do people follow that one? Launched on Christmas Day. Oh, I worked on that when I was at NASA 10 years ago, and to finally get to see this extraordinary, one of the most complex missions we've ever flown, probably the most complex robotic mission we've ever flown. Now out 1 million miles from Earth and cooling down. So JPL has one of the instruments on that spacecraft. So it's a big telescope looking in the infrared, so longer wavelength light than our eyes can see, so that we can see things that are further away in our universe whose light has been shifted into the infrared. This camera and spectrometer, it's called the mid-infrared instrument, very creative title because it's a mid-infrared camera, MURI, has to operate at 7 degrees above absolute zero, 7 Kelvin. So it has just achieved that temperature over the last couple of weeks. And so just stay tuned in the next, what month is it? Yeah. So I would say in the June timeframe, you're going to start to see just incredible images from the James Webb Space Telescope. And then looking forward, we've got a mission to a metal asteroid launching in August, and one to Jupiter's moon Europa, which we think is an icy shell with an ocean underneath. We're going to be going and doing multiple flybys, close flybys of Europa, to understand, could that be a habitable environment? So talk about inspiration. It's going to just be an incredible decade ahead at JPL. And then the other thing we do there is Earth science missions. So we do astrophysics, we do planetary science, but we also look back at the Earth. So we'll have a mission launching in November called SWAT, which is going to look at surface water and understand how it is changing and moving on our planet. So again, find that spark. NASA's a great place to do it, but every kid probably has something different that's going to touch them. The key is to find it and then build on it. So that's the one thing, cultivate wonder. The second thing is learn by doing. And this is a big passion of mine, which you talked about a lot today, about hands-on activities for students and work experience for students. All of those things are learning by doing, right? That's about real world problems, not homework problems. There's no answer for the back of the book, in the back of the book, for most of those things that we're asking kids to do that are project-based. WPI, this is the thing that really drew me to WPI 8 years ago, was to come and be a part of a place that has really pioneered project-based learning in STEM. 50 years ago, our faculty brilliantly threw out our entire curriculum and replaced it with a curriculum that had at its center projects for the students. And in fact, I won't tell you the whole story, but it actually only had a couple of major projects that the students had to do. The interesting thing is 50 years later, once we saw what incredible learning happened in those project-based experiences, that has now infected all the rest of the curriculum in a good way. And so more than 70% of the courses at WPI are fully project-based now, because we know that students learn better when they do it themselves, when they're figuring it out and solving the problems themselves. So I just told one quick story about it. So we had a student who, we have a little contest for the best student projects, and at the reception at the end of it, a mom came up to me, she was crying, and she said, I never ever would have predicted that my son would have been up there on one of those teams. He was one of those kids that in high school, he stayed in his room, he programmed the computer, he played computer games. His project was he worked on an app to reduce the stigma for people suffering from homelessness and drug addiction in Worcester. And the kid went with his team to group activities with addicts, with homeless people, and work on how can we make their lives a little bit better. And she said it has dramatically changed him. It has brought him out of his shell. It has brought him into the world. It's helped him understand the impact of studying computer science. Now he knows it's not just about computer science. It's about what you can do to help people. So learn by doing. Last thing I'll say about this is the Donahue Institute was up here earlier. We worked with them just before I arrived at WPI on a study of our alumni, looking back at their project-based learning experiences at WPI, and asked them, of all of us, they gave them a long list of attributes and said, which ones were most important do you think that you got from doing project-based learning? And the number one thing they picked, 89% of them said, it made me take responsibility for my own learning. I feel like the angels sing, right? As educators, as a college president, if we can get students to take responsibility for their own learning, if they can understand nobody's going to do it for them, they have the capability and the responsibility to keep learning, because that's how you solve important problems. That's incredible. So learn by doing. And the third thing I'll say is kick down the door. And that's what so many of you here do. We can set up all of the great programs we want, we can have the best practices, and we need to do all those things. But for so many students, and this is especially true for students underrepresented in STEM, pointing the way isn't enough, lighting the way isn't enough. We need to kick down the door, take the hand and guide, right? We have to be more than mentors, we have to be sponsors. I have had this personal experience myself where a faculty member, when I was in college, I was interested, I had been fascinated by Mars pictures when I was 10 years old, but it never occurred to me you could actually have a job working in the space program. I found an opportunity for that in a summer internship, and cold called the only woman full professor in the sciences during my undergraduate. I cold called her and said, I'm interested in this, but I don't know anything about it, and can you help me? And I'll never forget this picture of her in my head, physically dropping what she was working on and saying, please come in, let's talk, let me help you. And she did. And I got the internship, and the rest, as they say, is history. But that's the secret sauce, right? She could have said, oh, sure, come back later, or that moment of courage that it took me to seek her out, but she was there, she was receptive, and she helped kick down that door. I think teachers, professors, administrators, companies, you can change the trajectory of young people's lives, and that's the joy of this work we do, this education work we do. We can change the trajectory if we continue to kick down the door. So if we cultivate wonder and learn by doing and kick down doors, there is really no limit to what our young people can do. And so I'm so grateful for all of the work of everyone in this room, everyone who's watching, all of the programs we put into place to try to make this possible. And it's not been easy these past couple of years. As the governor has said, there's a lot of restarting that needs to happen, but I know with this commitment, we will do it. And I will tell you the kind of things that can happen if you do it. Last night, Jessica Watkins arrived at the space station. She's the first Black woman who's going to have an extended stay in space. She's going to be on the space station for 6 months. She's a scientist, formerly of JPL, actually. And she talks about following in people's footsteps. She talks about people who kicked down doors for her and the experiences that she was able to have that have now allowed her to be the person that's going to light the way for who comes next. And these things are happening, these changes are happening every single day because of the work that all of you do. So I've enjoyed being able to talk to you for a few minutes about some ideas about the future of STEM. And again, so appreciative for the chance to be here in my last couple of weeks in Massachusetts. So thank you very much. And so I also get the pleasure of introducing our wonderful Lieutenant Governor, who is really the shoulder behind the STEM education initiatives in the Commonwealth through the STEM, oh my God, I'm going to say some, the Advisory Council, thank you, the STEM Advisory Council. And so many of the things the governor spoke about, we considered and worked on and pushed through as a result of the work on the Advisory Council. And our focus on things that we know would work, that we knew worked, and scaling them up has truly been extraordinary. So please warmly welcome our Lieutenant Governor, Sharon Poole.
That was awesome. I loved all of that message. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you, Laurie, over the past now 7 but 8 years, having known you as you came in June of 2014 on our inaugural tour in January 2015. You were one of our first stops. You have been an incredible STEM leader here in this Commonwealth, a great advisor to me and to Jeffrey Leiden, Congressman Kennedy, and Congressman Auchincloss as my co-chairs of the Advisory Council, and for doing so much as the first woman president at WPI, and never forgetting your focus also on the Math and Science Academy that is also a part of the institution there. And why we will greatly miss you in your physical presence here in the Commonwealth and of course in Central Massachusetts, my home area. We will always be following at Laurie of Mars on Twitter and your amazing travels in the universe. So thank you for your contributions. This has been an amazing day. I just want to acknowledge the incredible team. This has been a STEM accomplishment, just coordinating a hybrid in-person STEM event and a STEM summit. Molly Burgoyne from my office, as well as Colleen Maloney, have done an extraordinary job. We had about 1,000 participants between the virtual events and the in-person events all across our Commonwealth. So we've managed to maximize the engagement and the connectivity all across our state. You heard the 5 regions present what they learned and heard this morning. You saw some common themes, you saw some unique themes, and we clearly have a collection of information that we can take back literally to the office and then take further next steps from here. Without going into too much detail on the why, I think we all understand why STEM education is critical. STEM education is workforce development. STEM education is opportunity. STEM education is DEI. And it will help us solve not only the jobs and the economic expansion challenges that we have in this Commonwealth and other places in this nation, but it will also help us bring more opportunity to places and into individual lives. And that's why it has been a great experience leading the STEM Council, but also coming up with themes that resonate. Seeing yourself in STEM is a real theme that we embrace fully in our education centers, both K through 12, community college, early college, and beyond. And we've also asked our employers to think about them as an extension of learning beyond the classroom. That learning has to continue into the workplace. And that's why the theme at the summit is to inspire a STEM start, asking every employer in this Commonwealth, small, medium, or large employer, to think about how you can use your own workforce to engage with students and educators in your community, for students to literally not only see themselves in a STEM subject, but see themselves in your workplace. And at a point in time when talent is of high demand, not only here in this Commonwealth, but across our nation, we need to not only create the talent, but we need to retain the talent here in Massachusetts. And the one key way to tether that student, to tether that graduate student from high school that can go into a credential program and directly into the workforce or into a further education opportunity, is to have a workplace experience that keeps them here. And that's why this call to action that I'm going to close out our STEM Summit with is about paid high school internships. When you tie something like that in with especially early college, as the governor spoke about, you will engage students in high school that are already on these career paths into an industry sector that's part of our innovation economy, and then tie them into your workplace. And what we heard over and over again from employers is you gotta make it easier for us. We can understand the college student because they're a little older. The high school student's a different animal, and they're younger. And we have liability issues, paperwork issues. Just don't make it complicated for us. So we took the complication away. First of all, we have $4 million that we're deploying through our mass hire agencies all throughout our Commonwealth. These are the regional hiring agencies. And they're going to hire the student directly from the local school, working with connecting activities and working with our STEM regional networks. They will hire the student and they will pay the student to work with you in your workplace. All you need to do as an employer is to create the experience. That experience can be in person, it can be during the school year, it can be in the summer, it can be also virtual. And I venture to say that any employer that's trying to engage their employees with a mission around mentoring and inviting students to understand what skills they need to do their jobs. I was at Amazon Robotics today. It looks nothing like a manufacturing place of 20 years ago. This place is cool. This is where the robots that move around all the goods in the nation are being designed and made right here in Massachusetts. When kids see that, that's pretty exciting. So the call to action is every employer in this Commonwealth could do their part to inspire your STEM start. It can be virtual job shadow day, it can be a virtual tour of your organization, or it could be an in-person experience. And our goal is to get to 10,000 paid high school internships this year and continue that trend annually, hopefully forever, well beyond the governor in my experience here as your governor, lieutenant governor. We're at about 7,700. We need to add 2,300 more. We're going to work with the Mass Cybersecurity Center. We're going to work with Mass Life Science Center, and we're going to work with all of you. So thank you for participating today. We've got a lot of work to do and a great foundation upon which to build. And let's go get those students into your workplaces. Congratulations.
For attending today. On your way out, there is